What are the benefits of having a final year project, in your opinion?
Okay, so the main one and the most important one is preparing students for the workplace. So, like, no matter what jobs our students go into, and there are a huge variety of jobs that our students can do, in every job, there's key and common elements that you have to be prepared for. So we try to make the final year project as real world as possible. So that when students go into the workplace to work on projects in whatever company they go into, the phrase I would use is they can hit the ground running. They're ready for it. They're prepared for it.
What changes are going to be made to the final year project?
Well, the final year project is continually evolving, so it doesn't stay still. We have to adapt all the time. The main change is over time we've moved away from the project from being a coding project. You basically it was write code to do something. It's now more of a problem solving project. So students still create something, they still create a system, but it's more about It's more about solving the problem and how they solve the problem. That's the important part now. So yeah, they still create something. There's still something at the end of it, but does that solve a problem, and how did you solve that problem? That's the key part of it now. We don't consider it just a coding project anymore.
Are there many resources available to students before and during the process of the final year project?
It depends what stage you ask the students. Basically, everything the students have learned over the 3 or 4 years of the degree, that's a valuable resource for them. Okay, they take everything they've learned and now they're applying it, and they're applying it in a real world scenario. The main resource they have is the staff as mentors. Now, their role isn't to tell the student what to do. The student, they're not going to go, I want you to do it this way, and it should look like this, and use this technology, and so on. They're there to give them regular feedback, okay? And that feedback is a huge benefit for them. So, like, normally, if you think about it, when you were in school, or you did the Leaving Cert, or you're in college, you get an assignment, it takes you 3 months, and then at the end of it, you get a mark, and you may look for feedback, you may not look for feedback. In this, you're going to get feedback every 2 weeks. You are at least every 2 weeks, sometimes every week. So the students show their work to their mentor at least every 2 weeks, and they get this very useful feedback. So with this feedback, the student knows, yeah, look, they're on track. Okay. Now, when you talk about resources, I've got to kind of twist that a bit. This isn't about resources. The final year project takes away that idea of what we're normally used to with assignments and so on. And the FYP is very much self-directed. The student has complete ownership of everything. They decide what problem to solve. We don't tell them. They decide how to solve it. We don't tell them. We decide what it's going to be used for. We don't tell them. They own everything. All right. So when you talk about resources could be viewed as hand-holding, where you're in school or college where you're told exactly what to do and how to do it. In this, you're not. You have complete ownership of it. And again, if you think about it, if you go out into the real world, in inverted commas, that's how it works. People aren't going to hold your hand. Your boss isn't going to go, this is what I want you to do, how to do it, where to do it, what to do. They want you to do something. Your job is to go ahead and do it. You don't have a lecturer holding your hand in the real world telling you what to do. So we're really preparing students for that idea. So when you say resources, the main resource is the student themselves. That's it. That's the reality. And that's very different than what people are used to.
Are there milestones or targets that students have to reach during the development of the final year project?
Yeah, and this is where it's very, very different than assignments and so on you have in BIS or in courses in UCC or any university. We have deliverables. We call them deliverables. They are assignments every 2 weeks. And every 2 weeks, you're going to get feedback from your mentor. But again, this is more real world. I mean, I worked in industry. You have milestones continually that you have to show where you are and present to somebody or show what you've done. And it isn't 3 months or, in university or in school since you were 5 years of age, you were given assignments and assessments. They can take up to 3 months to do. Okay, when you're in industry, you're not left on your own on a project for 3 months. That doesn't happen. You got regular milestones along the way, and the FIP prepares students for working in that environment. So they have very, very strict deadlines, and the deadlines are very strict. If you ask the students, they will tell you, "Oh yeah, a deadline is a deadline." You know, the dog ate my homework. The cat hijacked the bus. None of those things matter. In the real world, you deliver on time, and that's the same expectations we have for the students.
Do students have to use programming languages that they've learned in college, or can they use other ones that they've learned? And if so, is it recommended?
Okay, again, I'll go back to the point about the FYP is self-directed. The students own everything. They make all the project decisions themselves. Nobody is telling them what they have to do. So they can decide to use a programming language they learned in earlier years. Some of them learn a completely new programming language, or some of them decide not to use a programming language at all. So this is where it doesn't have to be code. Those where we say no programming languages, these are what we call low code projects, where they use a system where they design what the system will look like, how it will feel, the look and feel of it. They design the workflow, how you go through the system, but the code is created for them. So they're not really coders in that case. What they are is problem solvers. Now, coders are problem solvers as well. But again, we don't tell them which to do. The student has to decide this themselves. What's the best approach for me to solve this problem? Will I use a programming language I know? Will I learn a new one? Or will I not use a programming language at all and use something like low code? Again, we don't tell students this. And that's very different than what students are used to. But again, that's the reality in the real world. You're told to solve a problem, to do a task. Nobody's going to be sitting beside you the whole time saying, do this, then this, then this, then this. That's not the way it works.
Are there certain types of projects that tend to do better? For example, proof of use compared to proof of concept?
Very simple answer to this one is no. There's no one type of project that will succeed. We have 140 plus students. There's 140 different types of projects. There's no rule that says you have to do it a certain way. And again, this goes back to the student owning the project, okay? So we have proof of concepts where there's no customer at all. So a student is just developing a solution that is a proof of concept. It's just to prove that this could work. There's no actual customer. But we also have a low code system that's actually in use by a client. So a hotel could be using it for room bookings, for example, something like that. So it's a simpler system, but the solution is actually in use. And both of those are equally valid. Now, they do have different expectations though. So we would expect different things from the different types of systems. So as an example, we had a proof of concept, but there was no customer or client yet. Remember, they're doing this in fourth year. If they want, they can continue with it, and they can have customers afterwards. But for the project, this one example, no customer. They were creating a system which was for Alzheimer patients. So an Alzheimer patient who was actually living at home on their own. So what they did was they got a mirror in the house, and they used that to actually display data. There was actually an Android system behind the mirror, and it used the mirror. You could see your own reflection in it. You could do your hair in it, but it also displayed information. So it displayed things like a daily calendar, reminding them of the tasks that they had to do during the day, which is very important for Alzheimer's patients. It also had a rolling display of family photographs, which is a useful reminder of their families and different happy events and so on. So that was a proof of concept. There was no customer for it, but it was graded as a proof of concept. There's no expectation that you'd have a customer for something like that yet, okay? Not before the project had ended. On the other side, again, you could have something like this low code system, but it's actually in use by a client. So the client is actually using the system in their company. And in that case, the system is not the most important part. It's the solution in use that's the important part. So they're the two extremes that you have, and you've got different kinds of projects in the middle. But there is no one type of project we tell you this is what you have to do. Again, this goes back to the student owns this. It's you decide what's the best thing, what's the best approach to do this, what's the best solution, and the student is in charge of that.
What is the main benefit to the students in doing a final year project?
So I was talking to a senior manager of one of the large consultancy firms, one of the ones who actually they tend to hire a lot of BIS graduates. And he told me in his department, he had quite a few BIS graduates from UCC, and he's got graduates from other programs in different universities. And he told me he can actually quickly tell who the BIS graduates are. He can actually spot them very quickly. And he said he spots them because the expression he uses that I now use is they hit the ground running. They're ready. They start work straight away. They are used to this kind of work environment. And they're much better prepared for the reality of working in industry or wherever they are. And he was curious as to why this was, and he asked them. And the more he looked into it, he found out it was the final year project that made the difference. So he said the BIS students in UCC are better prepared for working in industry. And that's a major differentiator for our students. That's a big plus for them when they go out into the workplace. They are better prepared and better placed for their roles on graduation.